Hello, good evening, and welcome to the Real Estate Plate. As always, I'm your host, Nick Sikalis, coming to you live from the WGBV studios over here in lovely Merrick, New York. And just like every week, we'll be talking real estate. And this week in particular, I'm going to be addressing a lot of questions and comments that I've received throughout the week. And if you want to join the conversation or ask another question, you could obviously call in live at 516-623-1240. Again, the number here is 1-516-623-1240. In the meantime, we're running this Facebook Live experiment for the third week, and overall, I've been getting some pretty good feedback. I've been reading the comments, the messages, the private messages that people have been sending me, and it's been pretty positive all around. Just like I'll be taking calls, I'll also be looking at any comments that are put in through Facebook, and I'll be able to address them as they come in. But I think it's been working out really well. The only thing I'm going to try to incorporate in the future with this is if I could do it through a multi-stream or some type of other platform where I'm going to be able to get other people from other locations to be able to participate and have multiple video streams happening at the same time. We'll see how that works out. And if I'm able to accomplish it, I think that will be something that's going to be a positive and add to the show itself. So we're going to just jump right into it today, and I'm going to hit one of the top subjects that have been asked in different type of formats, but for just to make it plain and simple, one of the things that people have been asking me a lot is how do they determine what the right type of professionals when trying to put something together in real estate are determined, and will make somebody the right professional or doesn't make the right professional. So before I even give a blanket answer on that, I have to be really honest. It comes into multi functions of real estate. Every person that's part of a real estate transaction has their role, and everybody on, let's say, that team is as good as the other people are there on the team as well. And if you have weak links, that either forces the other people part of the team to make up the ground, or sometimes it actually makes it more difficult for a transaction to take place or to actually be completed. So I'm going to just point out the key people that are contributing to a real estate transaction, and this comes from both the buyer and the seller side. Okay, number one thing, I don't know if it's my own personal bias, the fact that I'm a real estate agent, but I'm going to say picking the right type of real estate agent, and I'll get into what makes each individual profession that I'm going to be talking about the right type, and why I'm going to be pointing that out. It's critical that you choose wisely in all these areas, because, like I said, it could really cause a domino effect if you have one position that's lagging more than others. So you start off with a real estate professional. Why is that important? One, to have the proper individual that's going to be either helping you list and sell your home and market it properly, and be able to coordinate at all sides in order to get it done as painlessly and efficiently as possible for the seller. And if you're looking at from the buyer point of view, having somebody that is knowledgeable enough and understands the market and your needs in order to help you find the right fit for yourself on the type of home or property that you're purchasing. And I'll get a little bit into that a little bit more after, but that's the simple form. The next part of the equation is picking the right type of attorney. Why do I say the right type of attorney? Because you might have a great attorney that's, let's say, a divorce lawyer, but not really that knowledgeable and not that great of a real estate attorney, because they just don't do that every day, and it's not what they're used to. Or somebody that does it part-time, or somebody that did it for years and is semi-retired and is passive, might not be a great fit for you. There's a lot of different scenarios that you want to make sure that you're actually taking into consideration when you're choosing that attorney. And by far, you want to make sure that it's an attorney that does real estate on a daily basis. It's not something that they're doing as a favor to you. And believe me, if you have a family attorney or a friend or something to that effect that's trying to help you out, they might have the greatest intentions of helping you out. And they might be a great person and a great attorney in their own form of practice that they're doing, but they might not be necessarily helping you in the best way when they're actually trying to put together your sale or your purchase. So you have to be clear about that, and you have to have that discussion with the person that you're going to be working with, especially if it's a family member or friend. Sometimes it works without a hitch, and sometimes it could be a real nightmare or a real problem. So you have to be very careful, and especially here in New York, the attorney is critical. Attorneys can make or break deals just as much as the real estate agents can, and just the same way a mortgage broker can, which brings us into the next phase, a mortgage broker. Now, when I say mortgage broker, I mean the lender. It doesn't have to be an individual broker that goes out shopping your mortgage for you. It could be going to one of the big box stores like Chase or Wells Fargo or Citibank, and just using them as the lender. But you want to make sure that you're picking the right fit for you. You need to know ahead of time what it is that you need from that mortgage broker, because and not everybody's situation is the same. If everybody worked with a W-2 and had a pretty much blanket salary and that kind of thing, it'd be easy and it'd be a perfect world. But not everybody's economic and financial status is the same. And sometimes what a big box bank, or like we said, Wells Fargo, Chase, et cetera, can't do, a mortgage broker who shops around from other banks, including regional, credit unions, other type of lending institutions, private lending institutions, might be able to find the right fit with your economic status. And that happens a lot of times when you have people that are independent contractors or people that are self-employed, and you want to make sure that you're getting the right person working to get you the best possible loan. And it's a conversation you should actually have with your real estate agent ahead of time before you even start shopping around mortgage, because you might be in a position where you go and ask the person, the lender from the institution that you actually bank with, and they might not be able to help you with the solution. You might give up at that point. You want to know what your options are. And sometimes you don't have options. And there's some people that they just need a little more time, or they need to get a little creative or to find a different solution. But more times than not, there's other alternatives or better alternatives that might help you in a way that you're not going to get with your first choice or the first place that you go and ask. So it's important to pick the right lender in that from that aspect. Next on the list, a home inspector. Now, why is a home inspector important? First of all, especially if you're buying a house that's a little older, um, it's been used for a long time. Uh, if you, as a buyer, are not that knowledgeable about possible things that might be in need of repair or things that the common person's eye might not uh, take to, your home inspector is the individual that will cover those gaps and basically be able to assess and determine what may or may not need any type of work or attention in the house. That doesn't necessarily mean you pick a home inspector to go and dissect the house in order to get you a better deal. Because a lot of people do that, and it's not necessarily a smart choice, especially if a house is a good house or in a hot market where you have multiple bidders. You're gonna lose your deal immediately, especially if you go nitpicking over small things. And when I say small things, are the plate for the electrical outlet is crooked, or there might be a crack in one of the pieces of sheetrock, or just settling or something like I'm talking about really minor and normal things that you find in older homes. These are the kind of things that um, they shouldn't be used as negotiation tactics, especially coming from a listing agent's point of view, because that's the majority of work that I do. I mean, I still work with a lot of buyers, but primarily, I want to say 70% of my business is directed towards listings and working with sellers. And when I have somebody come in with an inspector and they try to dissect and nitpick minor things, a lot of times I throw those deals out the window. I mean, obviously it comes down to the seller's point of view and what they want to do, but you know, if they're nitpicking over minor things in the beginning, it could become a major issue down the line once you actually do get into contract. So, you know, again, it could be a negotiation tactic, and it could be something that helps you, especially in a buyer's market, but not in a seller's market, and definitely not on a house that's really desirable that has multiple possible people uh, that are interested in purchasing the place. So you want to make sure that you're not focusing on that. What you should be focusing on is the major stuff. And when I say major stuff, foundations. You don't want to have major cracks or issues in the foundations. The last thing you want to do is buy a house that's seeping water in it, and you have issues like that going on. You're going to look into termites. If you have live termite uh, infestations and they're circulating the house, that's something that you definitely want to have addressed. It might not necessarily be a deal breaker, but at the same time, you want to address it immediately and you want to remedy it immediately, because it's the kind of thing that could escalate at a really fast pace and it could cause a real big problem. So you don't want to have that being something that you have to take care of before you purchase, after you purchase the place. Nothing that you might, that's costly is obviously heating, air conditioning. If they're not working properly, if they're broken down, um, you want to make sure that's operating and functional. Uh, and that's the other thing. Not only do you want to know if it's functional, how much life do these units still have on them? Like if they're at the end of their life, and you're purchasing, you should definitely uh, budget for possibly replacing it within the next couple of years. But if it's a new unit, you actually have you move on accordingly. Whether it's the boiler, whether it's the HVAC, and on a minor level, like a more lower level in pricing and finances, your hot water heater and that kind of stuff. That goes, those are important factors and things that could be critical. You don't want to go into a house in the middle of winter with heat that's not working. So you want that to be operating, or the same goes in the summer without an air conditioner that's working. So those are important factors. Roof is really important. Windows could be a costly thing, and you will definitely want to check those out. Like if you have really old windows and they're not in the greatest shape, and you know that you're going to have to either start replacing or replace them all almost from the beginning, you want to factor in what the cost is going to be on that. So that's something that you want to have your home inspector point out to you and make sure that you can actually budget for that as well. Doesn't necessarily mean that the seller will replace them for you or give you a credit for them, because obviously you could see that when you're first looking at the house, but it's something you want to keep in mind and understand what you're getting into when you're purchasing. And that's really the real intention of the inspection and all its intents. You have the inspection done in order to understand what may or may not need repairs and how much they could potentially cost you. And that goes to one more thing as far as the home inspector themselves. Home inspector is there only to basically tell you what may or may not need to be repaired and potentially give you an idea of how much life a certain item or part of the home may still have, and that kind of a thing. They're not really that qualified to be able to actually give you pricing or give you the understanding of what it will cost you to repair an item. I strongly suggest if there's a big ticket item out there and you're in question of how much it will actually cost you, after you have that inspection done and that item is addressed, you bring an actual licensed contractor into the place for that given item. Let's say it's a boiler that needs to be repaired, or some type of plumbing issue. You go and get a plumber to come in and give you a quote of how much it will cost you to repair or replace it, and then you have a really accurate figure or a more accurate figure at that point. Or if it's an electrical issue or a structural issue or something that a carpenter would have to come in and repair, or flooring, or etc., etc. You want it to be somebody coming in that actually does that on a daily basis, that's licensed and bonded and actually knows how much it would cost, and will give you actual real numbers and a real estimate. A lot of times I understand a lot of inspectors, they want to volunteer and they want to make themselves helpful by giving you an idea. And that's okay, I guess, but it's not really a great source, and it really shouldn't be done. It should be separated completely. Same way, like if somebody asks me how much does a lawyer cost or how much does a home inspector cost, well, I have an idea of what they charge, but at the same time, each individual lawyer or individual inspector or whatever other profession they're going to be using may have a different scale that they're working off of. And what I always say is call the attorney, see what they charge for. More or less, I have an idea, but it's not my place to actually give a figure for somebody else's work that's going to be done. You could only be accountable for the type of work that you're doing and how much that you'll be compensated for your efforts and your business, not for somebody else's. So that is actually something that happens a lot, and you have a lot of home inspectors that really um, go over the top as far as volunteering a lot of that information. It's not a great thing because sometimes it scares some people when it could be something minor, or it could be something that they're underestimating that could cost the buyer potentially a lot more. And guess what? They're not liable because they're not going to put that into the inspection report. They'll never put an actual number of what it cost them to replace in an inspection report. They're giving their opinion in that inspection report. So, be careful when it comes to that. It's something that you want to make sure that you understand before you actually hire that individual. So that's a key item, and definitely a important role, especially on a lot older homes that have not really been maintained well. Uh, Obviously, if somebody's buying a house or a property that's a knockdown, or they're looking to gut the place, or completely rebuild and that kind of thing, and they're just looking at it and the point of view of what's the layout and what's the size of the property, then it means nothing to them because they're going to knock it down anyway, and doesn't it's not that important to them. Because they're buying it purely on the rebuild potential, not on the current state. And the offer that they would give in and what they would pay on the property in really neglected property is basically a discounted value. It's a distressed property. But, you have some of those betweeners that are not necessarily considered completely poor in condition and completely distressed, but they're also not average. They're below average. They're like right in that limbo purgatory state. So those are the ones you definitely want to be careful of, especially if you're going to be an end user and move into the house hoping not to do much work. So I put the inspector in high regard and very high in standing, like in the top 4 categories, and the 4 that we just mentioned. And there are other parts and components that are important as far as hiring the right professionals. But as far as the transaction itself is concerned, these are definitely the most important aspects of structuring, putting together the deal, and putting together the terms. I mean, obviously, you have insurance brokers, the title searchers. Those are, and usually a lot of times those are hired out by the attorney, or the title is actually more times than not hired out by the attorneys. But you always have the option of getting your own title search company, which is really, really important. But at the same time, you're all insured as well. And obviously insurance, which is going to affect you down the line as you purchase the place, is important as well. But these are not critical items to that putting and structuring the deal together, because that's what we're focusing on right now. The professionals needed to actually put together and structure the deal properly. And I'm going to just loop around and go back to where we started, and that's at the beginning, where we're at the real estate agent or the broker that you're using. And I'm going to start to get a little bit more in depth of why and what makes a real estate professional the right choice or not the right choice. One, you want a person that is very knowledgeable of not only the area that you're looking in, but also very knowledgeable about the type of property or home that you're purchasing, and at the same time is a person, or is a person that will give you the attention and the time that you need because there's some really great brokers out there and agents out there, but they're spread very thin, and they don't have enough time to focus on each individual client as much as they really should. So you want to make sure that that's all in place. And that's part of the reason why I can't work with everybody, because I kind of put my own personal cutoff. If I know that I'm overwhelmed and I'm at a point where I can't help somebody in the proper way, I have no issue telling them that you're getting me at a time where I really can't help you. I could refer you to somebody else, or I do have a team, so I do have some of my team members help me out, and I overlook the process. And obviously, I'm there for negotiations, that kind of thing. But to be hands-on, I can't be in every place at every time, and that's something you have to make sure that when you hire somebody, that you do have that person committed to you and giving the attention you need. So it's a conversation you have to have and be open with it. And it also works on the reverse end as well. If you're working for the seller, if you have 100 listings out at the same time, I guarantee you're not in the position as a listing agent or a broker to be able to service all of those listings equally and efficiently and properly. Actually, you're just it's impossible. So either you have to have a really strong team, and that's the kind of conversation you're going to have with that professional to see what kind of structure they have as far as being able to help you. What are the hours of operation? Because that's really important as well. Because some people they have certain hours that they'll operate, and then they have cutoff times. Not everybody's a maniac like myself, and I'm not the only one. There's a lot of us that are kind of sick when it comes to the actual hours that we work. I can take calls 11, 12 o'clock at night sometimes from some of my clients, especially the ones that work that are from the West Coast, because we got the time difference. You can't just shut it on and off. I mean, obviously you have to have a personal life as well, but um, we're in a service-based business, and everything is client-oriented. And the number one thing that we're offering to our clients is service. So you want to make sure that the person that you're hiring has the time and will be working within your hours and be able to communicate with you and work with you according to your schedule as well. So, these are the items that you want to talk about, and definitely very important type of um, things that could make or break the sale of your home or property. So, like I said, you want to make sure that all these things are thought through. And I'm going to quickly glance up, because I could just do one whole show. Well, forget about one whole show. I could do a year worth of shows about making the differences between the type of brokerages that you use, because you have scenarios where you have people are saying, well, do I use a full service broker? Do I use a hybrid broker, which is not really full service, not really discount, somewhere floating in between? Or do I use a discount broker? Or do I say, I don't want to use any broker, I'm going to do it myself? These are important factors, and it works on both sides, but more importantly on the selling side. And I will say something, and everybody knows this, everybody's heard this a million times: you get what you pay for. You definitely do. And it is just impossible for a discount broker, or sometimes even the hybrid brokers, provide the same type of service and marketing that a full service broker does. It's just not going to happen. And it's hard for people to understand that, but it's let me put it very simple. You got these companies like There's a company floating around right now, Purple Bricks. You know, Purple Bricks is one of those companies that could be a fad. It could be just another option for a while, or it could be one of these things that are here today and disrupt the industry, but not necessarily in a good way. And I'll say why. There used to be a company. I'll give a little history lesson for some of the people that don't go far back in as far as real estate companies. Purple Bricks reminds me a lot of a company called Foxtons that was around, I guess, 8 to 10 years ago, and it was one of these companies that would run around and basically tell everybody that we are Foxtons and we'll sell your listing for 2%, etc., etc. In the beginning, it was like a big deal. Everybody that was on the verge of whether they want to have somebody be a full service broker for them or not, or they were looking at every dollar, which as a seller you want to make sure you're saving all the money you can. You don't want to give money out unnecessarily, but you got to also take into consideration what you're getting for your money, and that's the critical thing. If you're going to be looking at different services, you need to understand what you're being offered. So you had Foxtons that was gaining ground super fast, and there were numerous listings being put on the market through Foxton. Here's the thing. Foxtons was there to help have the property listed and was pretty much bare bones as far as what it offered out. It really was mostly on the seller. I mean, it was really one version up from like listing yourself on a forsale.com, forsalebyowner.com, or going through for sale by owner on a Zillow or something like that. It was just one step higher. It was right on the same, right in that same category as the flat fee type of services, like we'll list you on MLS, but that's about it. And if you want some other items to be included, like photography and signs, and kind of, you're going to have to pay for them all individually, a la carte. And what people had a rude awakening with was, okay, you're paying that percentage, but here's the thing. If another broker came to you that had the buyer, they wanted their own commission as well. And that 2% that you were getting, they were paying out for Foxtons was not covering both their commission and the other person's commission. So it was in a situation, you put people in a situation where they had a lot of expenses that were really unnecessary and not expected. And the worst thing out of everything was they went in believing that they had X amount of expenses and they budgeted in a way. And when they potentially would accept an offer, they didn't have all those additional expenses incorporated. And it hurt some people. And in other cases, because of the not being straightforward type of approach, it made a lot of people apprehensive. And I'm feeling personally that this Purple Bricks type of thing, and I'm looking more into it right now to understand what the format is, but I just feel like it's a retread of the same Foxton model. And it's deceiving, and you know what, if you want to go about doing, if you're going to take those models, you might as well sell it yourself and spend a good chunk of marketing out of pocket and make it happen, in my personal opinion, because you're not really getting the benefit that you would get by actually having a real individual that's experienced to be able to work with you. I mean, you had Redfin that went off of a similar type of model, and they go a lot of a la carte with their services, and they're an alternative, but they're not necessarily a great alternative. And in my personal opinion, like I said, if I was looking at strictly from the consumer point of view, and I was selling my house, I was not in the business, and I just looked at what I was offered by these discount brokerages. I would actually just say, you know what, I'm going to put aside X amount of money to market, advertise my place. But you have to actually put that money aside and actually spend it. You can't just pop a sign, a white sign that you roll with a Sharpie saying for sale, call me. That doesn't necessarily do it. You got to spend actually some real money to advertise yourself and put yourself on the market. But if you're willing to actually go down the road of using companies like Purple Bricks or anything like that, you might as well just spend the money yourself and get it sold your own way. You might still have to work a deal out with a buyer or a broker that brings in your buyers, whatever the case is, but then you could at least work it individually and make a deal with them. But you just kind of want to position yourself in the right way. You know? And I don't mean to pick on these companies because, like I said, they're an alternative, and we're in a free market. We're in a capitalist system, and everybody has the right to try to create a business model that may or may not work. But because history has a funny way of repeating itself, I'm just seeing a lot of these companies that are just being retreaded and just kind of regurgitated over and over again, and they're the same old thing with a new wrapping around them. So you just be careful when it comes to that. And like I said, I have no vested interest in saying this because the people that I work with are basically going to come to me regardless because they're the people that I've done business with, they're my clients, people that have been referred to directly, and I'm very thankful to have a very loyal clientele, but it's for the people that I don't know, that I don't have any reach to, that are in markets that I don't do business in, that buyer beware. Just be very careful, and that doesn't only apply to these limited and discount brokerages, and it applies to other brokerages as well. You have a lot of these mid-level brokerages or mom and pop shops that have a way of manipulating the numbers and offering you supposedly the same service as somebody that's a full service and might do a full commission model when they're offering you a quote on their services. And what I suggest as a buyer that you do is ask them to give you a list of the items that they do for you and kind of break it down of how you're going to be marketed and what's going to be offered to you, and kind of give you maybe a projection of the first few weeks of how everything will run its course when the house gets listed, and be able to understand what you're being offered. And I promise you, more times than not, when you have a full service brokerage with a seasoned professional that has been doing this for a long time and has the budget and the marketing backing to be able to give you the best service out there, and then you take that other middle of the ground individual or a smaller type of company, and there's nothing out there. Everybody starts out small, so you might have superior agents that are small time or they're mom and pop shops. Don't get me wrong, and there's nothing against them because everybody starts off at a certain point. But when you're sitting and comparing, ask them to compare. And I tell you, 9 times out of 10, you're not even going to get half of the services provided to you from one brokerage or one broker or agent to another. And, there's a lot of things that are out there that I think, are obvious that you would want to take notice of. Obviously, what type of photography is going to be done, what kind of print material is going to be done, what type of video footage, if any, is going to be done for you. If it's a larger property, will you have drone footage done for you, or are they going to just cut and paste a picture off of Google Maps and stick it on there? Because I'll tell you something, that's one of the biggest pet peeves I have, and I'm not even going to get a rant on that, but I'll tell you something, the worst thing you can possibly do as a professional is cut corners and just like cut and paste a copy of Google Maps that's an aerial over the property that you're selling and say, okay, that's my marketing. You know what? You're going to have to spend a little bit of money, get a drone shot up there, do something. I don't care if you're going to have a sketch drawn. Anything is better than that. That's like, for me personally, that's zero effort and it drives me nuts, but I digress. I'm not even going to get into that. It's not something that well, I'm going to get into the show because honestly, this is only about like 20 minutes left of the show, and my rant on that will go on forever. It's just the same way, like the bare minimum that's done by a lot of agents where they just do a basic MLS type of sheet with no effort, nothing, no pictures, and not even printed out on legitimate paper. It's like copy paper that might be the equivalent of toilet paper, in my personal opinion. You have to, does anybody think I have a strong opinion about this? Because I definitely do. And these are items that are really, as a professional, irk me and embarrass me for our industry because, I look at it like this. I want everybody around me and everybody in the competing companies to be as professional as possible, because when you have an agent, and we're fighting a reputation that doesn't necessarily help us in any way. You had a lot of agents over the years and brokers that didn't do the right thing, and they made it difficult for a lot of other brokers, especially the ones that are doing the right thing, be able to either get themselves into the business or to fight a lot of negative thoughts and sentiments that people had because of the way the market's been, because of what they've done in the past. So I look at it like this. You're already fighting a certain stigma in the profession that people already have predetermined notions and feelings towards the industry and towards the professionals are working at. Don't compound it. Don't add on to it by not doing the right thing and taking the lazy way out and hurting yourself and the rest of the brokers individual. I get happy when I see people from my own company, from my team. Well, for my team, we all have our certain requirements, but from our company, from competing companies, doing the right thing, because it just makes the rest of us look better. I mean, it's simple as that. I mean, you don't want to have a situation where you have a bunch of cowboys and cowgirls running around doing whatever they want, and, like, making false promises and doing the kind of marketing that's not second rate, third rate, fourth rate. Just do the right thing. And if you're not in a position, or economically, if you're in the business and you're not in a position to do the right thing, you know what? Then maybe you should join a larger team, or maybe join a larger company that does have the resources. Maybe you're not going to make, as a professional, the same cut that you would in a discount company. But don't forget, a discount company, just the same way they don't offer a lot to the seller, they don't offer a lot to their agents as well. So you get, you know, if you're new to the market, you've got some problems with your own finances, and you're not able to sustain the marketing and the expenses that are incur. And there's a lot of marketing expenses, and it's not cheap to keep getting the right product out there for all your listings and for yourself individually as a promotion. You're better off going with a larger company, some company that has a better reputation, or has a high standard of getting their agents out there, and at least writing that for a while until you're able to put yourself in a financial position to be able to cover your own expenses and marketing. And then you can always go into the discount brokerages and go out individually and that kind of thing. But I wouldn't do it if I wasn't in the position to do so. I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and you know, I'm in a position where if I wanted to be independent, I could be independent. And if I wanted to be with a company, I could be with company. And for the most part, I wouldn't see much of a difference. But I like having a large national brand behind me. And I like having the marketing uh, not only help form me, my team and myself as an individual, as a stronger entity within my own region, but potentially getting myself out there on a national level. So I that's my personal opinion, and not everybody agrees to it and that kind of thing. And you had your wave of companies that you have a couple of them actually going out there. I'm not going to name names and that kind of thing, but they're going on these recruiting binges where they're just siphoning people off from the large companies, promising them the world and a greater commission splits for the agents. And then when they get there, they figure out that the grass is not always greener. And sometimes too late, because sometimes usually it takes a major financial commitment to make a switch, and it's not that easy to keep switching company to company, and it's not something I would recommend too. You don't want to switch company to company on a yearly basis or every couple of years being with a different company. It shows instability, and it's not something that I think is a positive thing for any individual. So that's basically where it falls on that item. And like I said, if you're going to be taking those approaches, make sure that you're comparing apples to apples. And if it's really a financial commitment that you can't make to have a better professional out there, just sell it yourself then. I know it's harder. It's a lot harder. And most people are really not made up to be salespeople, and sometimes it hurts them when they're trying to sell their own product, because there's a thing called overselling. And most people that are selling something that's their own personal item or something that they're emotionally connected to end up doing. And overselling could be something that really hurts you down the line. And underestimating and judging how the market's working and not getting the right kind of resources and information to put a proper marketing model and pricing model for your home or property out there can be really disruptive to the sale of your real estate. And you want to make sure that you're if you're going to do it yourself, do it properly, do your own research, give a call to a professional in the area. If you call the right one, they'll come in and they'll help you, regardless if you list with them or not. They'll be a source of information. I get calls from people all the time asking me to help them out, and a lot of times I know that they'll never list with me regardless, but I have no problem helping them out. I look at it like this: the higher they sell their home or property in the area, it's just going to help the comps for the sales that I'm making or the other brokers or agents are making in the area. So the last thing you want is a bunch of renegade for sale by owners selling their properties and selling them extremely and grossly undervalued and dropping the comps and the overall market value of that type of property or real estate in that specific regional market. So it's all connected, and one way or the other, you're basically going to um, see what the results will be coming up in your work as well. So, my opinion is, if you're a broker out there or agent out there, and you have people calling and asking you questions, regardless if you know they're going to list with you or they're going to give you a business, be a professional, help them, give them the best advice you can. I'm not telling you anybody to work for free, and that's one of the pet peeves I have. Is you have certain individuals and people out there that expect you to work for free or non gratis or whatever the case is. Where you need to understand that this is our source of income, and this is our livelihood as well. And they can't expect you to be working and giving people. But if you can guide somebody and help them and steer them in the right direction, you're doing the right thing. It always comes back to you. I always think that the more you do the right thing for people and help them, it always comes back to you tenfold. So, do it the way it should be, and you should be okay. Um, I didn't realize I went off on such a tangent for so long on this topic, and it kind of took me away from a lot of the other stuff I wanted to talk about today. And I'm looking right now and all the PMs coming into me and a couple of emails that came in as well. So I'm going to try to kind of rapidly hit a few of them as fast as I can. And they're all just questions that there's no straight answer. Uh, that's always the case with me. Anybody that knows me, I don't ever have a one-word answer or not. I usually have a lot of words for most of the stuff, especially in this business. I got such a passion for everything that I could talk forever about just about anything. So let me go really quick. Uh, Paul from Smithtown sent me a message regarding, is it a good time to start flipping? Is it a good time to start flipping? Straight answer, every time is a good time to start flipping as long as you purchase correctly. I don't care if it's a seller's market. I don't care if it's a buyer's market. If you purchase correctly and give yourself enough cushion and padding on the rehab of the place and have yourself enough of a margin on the resale of the place, then you'll be okay. I know it's a very vague answer the way I'm bringing it out to you, and it's a very difficult thing to actually give a definitive unless you have an example of something. But I'll break down a very simple thing, because this person is a Smith now. I might as well use numbers that might be comparable in parts of Suffolk. Let's say you're purchasing property in an area where your average single family home of 3 bedrooms and 2 baths with possibly a basement are selling for around 400. Okay, 500. Well, let's say 400. Okay, and you want to get into the flipping game. What's the right number as far as what's purchase list? There's no right number. You have to take a look at that property, evaluate how much work is needed, and you better be very good at evaluating how much work is needed. And if you don't know yourself how to judge that, you need to have the right people around you, which goes back to having the right people around you, and that's including contractors, electricians, plumbers, etc., people that are in the trades that actually could see issues and things that need to be addressed. And that's not factoring in anything that possibly might be hidden behind the walls. You have to always add a certain percentage as far as the surprise. And there are surprises out there. There are things that could be hidden in the walls that could cause you a lot of heartache. So I look at it like this: you take the purchase price, add whatever the expenses are, then add about 10% to your expense, maybe even 20% to your expense budget, to give yourself enough of a cushion. And then whatever's left over, that's your margin. So let's say you're in a $400,000 market of homes, and you purchase a home for $220,000. Okay, sounds cheap. Sounds like it makes sense. And you're estimating roughly about $80,000 worth of expenses to make the place tip top, exactly what you need. You're saying I need to give a really nice coat of makeup, including certain structural things, maybe some window replacements, redoing a bathroom or a kitchen. Either way, your budget's $80,000, and these are theoreticals. Like I said, we're just giving raw numbers. And on that $80,000, let's say you give yourself a margin of error, let's say 25%. So that's another $20,000. So you're all in right now at this moment at $320,000. Okay? Let's say the sales price or the projected sales price would be at $400,000. So you're talking about $80,000 in a return, and minus some your closing costs, etc. Let's say you have a net of about $60,000, $50,000, right around there, on a total of $350, let's say, of expenses all in, with purchase and your closing cost expenses. At the end of the day, that's not a bad margin. It's pretty good margin, especially if you're able to execute quickly and you're able to move the property quickly. So, you have to look at it like that. Ideally, you'd rather have that $80,000 cushion over the $50,000, but it really is on a case-by-case basis how fast you can get rid of it, how fast you can execute, and that kind of a thing. So that $50,000 profit margin could dissipate really quickly if it's a downward market, or if there's other factors that you haven't taken into consideration. Now we're getting close to the show, the end of the show, so I can't really get into other topics. So I'm just going to wrap this one up really quickly. So the number one thing is to make sure your margins will calculate enough of a cushion to make sure that you can't get hurt. There's no guarantees in life, whatever the case is, but you could also be educated about the way you go about it. And like I said, pick the right people around you, structure them, in a way that they'll be assets. And more times than not, you'll definitely do well and you'll be a success. And use your brain and not your heart when it comes to these purchases. So, like I said, thanks again, Paul, for sending me that email, and I hope that answered your question at least a little bit. And if you want me to further elaborate, send me another email with getting into more specifics, and I'll write you back. Now, we're definitely at the end of the show, so I'm definitely going to say good night. Have a great week. We'll do this again next week, same time, 6 to 7. And thank you for listening. And for everybody on Facebook, thanks for watching. Have a great week and a great evening.